Welcome to the Prime Desk on S24 television from the capital city, Abuja, where we bring you the news in Nigeria and around the world. I am Hadiza Galadima, but first, the headlines. Defense Minister warns against last-minute deployments for election security, urging early planning and proper coordination by security agencies. In Borno, Muslim and Christian leaders call for greater religious harmony and peaceful coexistence. While a school shooting in southern Philippines leaves 2 students dead and renews concerns over school security and young people's access to firearms. Now, the news in full. The Minister of Defense has warned security agencies against waiting until last minute before deploying personnel for election duties, stressing the need for early preparation and proper coordination. The minister says election security requires detailed planning, adequate manpower, and clear communication among the various security agencies involved in protecting voters, electoral officials, and election materials. He notes that late deployment could create avoidable security gaps, particularly in areas where there are existing threats of violence or other disruptions that could affect the conduct of elections. The warning comes as political activities continue to increase across the country ahead of the next electoral cycle, with security expected to remain a major issue for political parties, election officials, and voters. The Defense Minister is therefore urging security agencies to begin preparations early, conduct proper risk assessments, and ensure that personnel deployed for election duties are adequately briefed and prepared to maintain a peace while remaining professional and neutral. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, says it has dismantled an international cocaine trafficking cartel allegedly using Nigeria as a transit route to the United Kingdom, Europe, and Asia. The operation has led to the seizure of 184.5 kilograms of cocaine with an estimated street value of 39 billion naira and the arrest of the cartel's alleged Nigerian coordinator, a goods dealer and social media influencer popularly known as KC Luxury. The NDLEA chairman, Brigadier General Buba Marwa, retired, says the suspect was arrested at the Lagos airport while allegedly attempting to flee to Paris. S24's Gloria Atta reports.
The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, says it has dismantled an international cocaine trafficking cartel operating through Nigeria to the United Kingdom, Europe, and Asia. The agency says it seized 184.5 kilograms of cocaine valued at about 39 billion naira in a consignment intercepted through a courier company in Lagos. NDLEA chairman Mohammed Buba Marwa disclosed this in Lagos on Tuesday, saying the investigation led to the arrest of the cartel's alleged Nigerian coordinator, Afolabi Kazim Michael, popularly known as KC Luxury. Michael, described by the agency as a luxury goods dealer and social media influencer, was arrested at the boarding gate of the Murtala Muhammad International Airport, Lagos, on August 13. The NDLEA says he was attempting to flee to Paris on a business class flight. Operatives allegedly recovered 7,750 euros, 2,800 pounds sterling, and 100,000 naira, as well as expensive jewelry from him. A search of his luxury apartment in Banana Island, Lagos, also reportedly led to the recovery of exotic vehicles.
Today, be giving an account of the largest cocaine seizure in a courier house in the history of the agency, and one of the most significant and successful narcotics investigations undertaken by this agency in recent times. An investigation that has led to the unmasking and dismantling of an international cocaine trafficking cartel that has for years used Nigeria as a transit hub for the movement of illicit drugs to the United Kingdom, other parts of Europe, and Asia.
Another suspect, identified as Lawal Mujab Kehinde, a staff member of the logistics company through which the cocaine consignment was processed, was also arrested. According to the NDLEA, investigations revealed that the cartel used intermediary companies, false identities, and financial facilitators to move narcotics across international borders.
Given the scale and sophistication of this seizure, I immediately directed the constitution of a special investigation team with a clear mandate to trace every mind and hand that touched this consignment and bring the entire network, not just the couriers, but the masterminds, to justice. I am pleased to report that this mandate has been substantially achieved.
The agency also says some members of the syndicate have been arrested in the United Kingdom. Marwa said the operation highlights a growing shift by drug trafficking organizations from seaports and airports to courier and logistics companies, which they consider less monitored. The NDLEA says the investigation is ongoing while efforts continue to identify and apprehend other members of the alleged cartel. Gloria Atta, reporting for S24 Television.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has released the timetable and schedule of activities for the by-elections to fill the vacant representative constituency seat in Gombe State. The timetable provides the framework for political parties and candidates to participate in the electoral process with specific deadlines for party activities, nominations, and other preparations leading to the poll. INEC is expected to monitor the activities of political parties and ensure compliance with the Electoral Act and other regulations governing the conduct of elections. The Commission will also engage relevant stakeholders, including political parties, security agencies, civil society organizations, and community leaders as preparation for the by-election continue. The exercise comes as political activities gather momentum ahead of the 2027 general elections and will provide another opportunity for INEC to test its logistics, voters' engagement, and electoral management processes. The Commission is urging political parties, candidates, and their supporters to respect the timetable, avoid inflammatory conduct, and work towards a peaceful electoral process. Christians and Muslims leaders in Borno State have called on their followers to embrace religious tolerance, peaceful coexistence, and mutual respect. The leader says religious harmony is essential to continued recovery of the state, particularly after years of insecurity that displaced communities and disrupted social and economic activities. They are urging clerics, traditional rulers, parents, and young people to reject inflammatory messages and avoid actions capable of creating suspicion or division between Muslims and Christians. The religious leaders stress that the challenges confronting Borno affecting communities irrespective of faith and should therefore be addressed through cooperation, dialogue, and collective action. They say Peaceful relations between the two major religious communities will be critical to reconstruction, the return of displaced persons, economic recovery, and sustainable development across the state. The call comes amid wider efforts by religious leaders across Nigeria to strengthen an interfaith dialogue and discourage the use of religion to promote violence, intolerance, or division. Climate change and natural disaster often hit vulnerable communities the hardest, yet the voice of people living with disability are sometimes left out of disaster planning. In an effort to change this narrative, the Sauri Growth Initiative for Women and Youth with Disabilities organized a two-day workshop focused on ensuring that the need and experiences of women and young people with disability are considered in climate adaptation and disaster risk management. Our correspondent, Hajara Suleiman, has the report.
The Sauri Growth Initiative for Women and Youth with Disabilities organized a 2 day workshop aimed at increasing awareness and promoting the inclusion of women and young people living with disabilities in climate adaptation and disaster risk management in Nigeria. The program, titled Integrating the Voices and Needs of Women and Youth with Disabilities in Climate Adaptation and Disaster Risk Management in Nigeria, brought together stakeholders and participants to discuss the challenges faced by people with disabilities during climate-related emergencies and disasters.
I got to know about some of the ways whereby I will be able to help myself when disaster like flood happened before help comes. So those expectations were met because I got to know about how to navigate the myself before help come and even when help come, and also to advocate for myself.
The Sauri Growth Initiative is a youth-led non-governmental organization committed to empowering women and young people with disabilities through advocacy, capacity building, and community engagement. The organization seeks to promote inclusion, equal opportunities, and greater participation of persons with disabilities in the society.
The government should improve in their infrastructure because they are lacking behind. They are no more useful to the government agencies and policies. The government should contribute a lot with people with disability. They should contribute a lot to them in their aspect of infrastructure.
The initiative is part of the organization's advocacy efforts to ensure that concerns, experiences, and needs of persons with disabilities are reflected in policies and programs addressing climate change and disaster management.
Is since we are actually trying to develop a policy because this is a project, it's a 3-month project, and the main focus of the project is to develop a policy that affects women with disability, girls with disability, boys with disability, and then women-led organization for us to draft the policy in order to get the necessary inputs to make an impact in the climate ecosystem. So the outcome of this, my expectations from the outcome of this engagement is what for the participants to understand better on what advocacy is and how to make or develop policies which is going to impact their daily life.
Participants at the workshop were enlightened on the importance of active participation and representation in decision-making processes, particularly in developing climate adaptation strategies that are accessible and responsive to the need of vulnerable groups.
First of all, I have to appreciate the organizers because it shows thoughtfulness, it shows wisdom and long-term planning for them to conceive the fact that interests of women with disabilities need to be prioritized. I have to appreciate the organizers because what they are doing is something that will not just be beneficial to them, but to unborn generations, to our children and their children's children. It's something that will benefit the whole country, not just women. Even men will be beneficiaries of this intervention.
The organizers said greater attention must be given to the voices of women and youth with disabilities, especially as climate change continues to increase the risk faced by vulnerable communities across Nigeria.
To be knowledgeable about how climate change affects men with disabilities, so they can also add this into their programming, lend their own voice because we cannot do it alone. That's why we are building the capacity, forming an alliance with other organizations to add their voice to ensure that governments pass inclusive policies on climate change. And even some interventions, like the early warning signs, it is not inclusive for deaf people. And sometimes some synergies are not inclusive for blind people. So we want the government to include women with disabilities on the decision-making table when such critical decisions are being made, so that our voices will be imputed and our flights will be carried along.
Hajara Suleiman reporting for S24 Television.
The United States Coast Guard has lifted a long-standing entry restriction affecting vessels arriving in the United States from Nigerian ports, bringing an end to a measure that had affected Nigerian-linked shipping operations for about 12 years. The restriction was associated with concerns over Nigeria's compliance with international maritime security requirements and had subjected vessels arriving from Nigerian ports to additional security measures. The development follows years of engagement between the United States Coast Guard and the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA, to address identified security concerns and improve compliance with international standards. Nigeria has undertaken several measures to strengthen security at its ports, including assessment, technical engagement, and efforts to improve implementation of the International Ship and Port Facility Security Code. The lifting of the restriction is expected to improve confidence in Nigeria's maritime sector and strengthen shipping and trade relationships between Nigeria and the United States. It could also help reduce delays and additional operational costs for vessels and shipping companies involved in trade between the two countries, while strengthening Nigeria's reputation as a safer and more compliant maritime destination. If you're just joining us, you are watching the Prime Desk on S24 Television. Stay tuned for our international news after the break. Thanks for staying with us. A school in southern Philippines has been thrown into shock after a student opened fire on a fellow student, killing him before taking his own life. The shooting, which was reportedly live streamed, also left others injured and renewed concerns over school security and young people's access to firearms. Mariam Dalhato of S24 has the reports.
A school shooting in southern Philippines has left 2 students dead, including the suspected gunman, in the latest incident to raise concerns over safety in the country's schools. The shooting happened on Tuesday at a high school attached to Ateneo de Zamboanga University in Zamboanga City. Authorities say a grade 9 student entered the school armed with a rifle and a pistol and opened fire inside classrooms. A grade 9 male student was killed, while the suspected shooter later died by suicide. 2 other people were also injured in the incident. The attack was reportedly live streamed through a body-worn camera. Police are now investigating the circumstances surrounding the shooting, including how the student gained access to the firearms. Officials say one of the weapons was a government-issued pistol belonging to the suspect's father, a custom official, while another was a licensed firearm also owned by his father. The motive for the attack remains unclear. The incident has sent shockwaves through the school community, with students evacuated from the campus as authorities secured the area. It is also a second fatal school shooting reported in the Philippines in less than 2 months, following a deadly attack in Tacloban City in June that killed 3 students. Authorities are continuing their investigation as questions grow over firearm access and the measures needed to keep schools safe. Mariam Alhatu, reporting for S24 Television.
United States President Donald Trump has escalated tensions surrounding the strategically important Strait of Hormuz after posting a map on social media describing the waterway as new U.S. territory. The statement comes amid heightened tension between Washington and Tehran and growing international concerns over the security of commercial shipping through the strategic waterway. The Strait of Hormuz connects the Persian Gulf with the Gulf of Oman and is one of the world's most important routes for the transportation of crude oil and other energy products. Any prolonged disruption could therefore have serious consequences for global energy supplies. Trump has maintained a hardline position towards Iran and has linked his administration's military and diplomatic action to efforts to prevent Tehran from advancing its nuclear program and to secure American interests in the region. Iran has rejected U.S. pressure and claims over the waterway, while the latest declaration is expected to generate further diplomatic concerns over the status of the streets and the wider confrontation between Washington and Tehran. International governments and energy markets are closely monitoring developments because of the potential impact on oil prices, shipping costs, global trade, and energy security if tensions around the Strait of Hormuz escalate further. Finally, U.S. President Donald Trump has ordered a substantial reduction in joint military exercises with South Korea, saying the move could make the Korean peninsula safer and pointing to his relationship with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Noella Samuel reports.
The annual military exercise between the United States and South Korea are underway, but they are now facing a major change after President Donald Trump ordered the Pentagon to substantially reduce the drills. Trump says the exercise are costly and send what he considers an inappropriate and hostile signal to North Korea. He also pointed to his relationship with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, saying his engagement with Pyongyang has helped make the Korean peninsula safer. But the decision has raised concern in South Korea and among some US officials and security experts. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has stressed that the alliances with Washington remain central to his country's national security, while also calling for stronger South Korean defense capabilities. The annual All-G Freedom Shield exercises are designed to prepare US and South Korean forces for potential threats from North Korea. This year's drill began on Monday and are scheduled to run until August 27th. The exercises include training for threats such as drones, cyber attacks, and GPS disruption, reflecting North Korea's evolving military capabilities. Meanwhile, Trump says his approach could open the door to better relations with Pyongyang after saying Kim Jong un has responded positively to his outreach. But with North Korea maintaining its nuclear and missiles capabilities, questions remain over whether reducing military exercises with low tensions or weaken distresses in the region. Noella Samuel, S24 Television.
Now, a break from politics and current affairs as we bring you the latest from the world of entertainment. If you are still watching, this is Prime Dex on S24 television. And now we move to our explainer segment. Beyond the headlines, we provide the facts, context, and the key details you need to better understand today's biggest story. Stay tuned.
How safe is a female journalist in today's workspace? Every day, female journalists step out to tell stories that matter. They inform the public, question those in power, and give voice to the voiceless. But many women in journalism simply doing their jobs comes with serious risks. The numbers are alarming. A global study by the UNESCO and International Center for Journalists found that 73% of journalists have experienced online violence because of their work.
1 in 4 received threats of physical violence, 18% received threats of sexual violence, and 20 received abuse they experienced online, which later turned to real-life attack. Today, female journalists increasingly targeted by cyberbullying, hate speech, coordinated misinformation campaigns, especially those reporting online politics, corruption, election security, or human rights. Another growing concern is the misuse of artificial intelligence, deepfake videos, manipulated images, and AI-generated content, now being used to spread false information, damage reputation, and undermine the credibility of female journalists faster than ever before. The dangers are not limited to the digital world alone. While covering elections, protests, or conflict, even inside the newsroom, some continue to experience discrimination, sexual harassment, unequal opportunities. These experiences have lasting consequences. According to UNESCO, 30% of female journalists said online abuse led them to self-censor, while 26% reported impact of mental health. When journalists begin to silence themselves out of fear, the public lose access to important stories. So what's the solution? Governments must enforce laws that protect journalists. Media organizations must create safe, inclusive workspaces. Technology companies must act faster against online abuse. Government must enforce laws that protect journalists. Media organizations must create safe workspace. Technology companies must act fast against online abuse, AI-enabled harassment, and the public must continue to defend press freedom. Because protecting female journalists is not about protecting individuals, it's about protecting the truth. When journalists are safe, democracy is stronger. When they are silenced, society is left in the dark.
That was our explainer segment, I mean to say. Now let's join Quiet Linus of S24 for the biggest roundup of entertainment news making waves today.
The music scene is buzzing after Davido revealed why his highly anticipated collaboration with Wande Coal on the hit song Come My Way never made it to the public. Davido says Wande Coal reached out to him to record a verse for the song, and after hearing the final result, he believed they were working on a proper collaboration, not just a remix. He also wanted the song to come out with both artists receiving equal recognition, but things took a different turn. According to Davido, Wande Coal wanted to release the song first and later use his verse for a remix. Wande Coal has since defended his decision, pointing out that Come My Way was his song and had already become successful as a solo release. The revelation has now got fans talking about collaborations, ownership, and what really happens behind the scenes before a song reaches the public. And while the music industry debates an unreleased collaboration, the Nollywood community is rallying around one of its veterans. Veteran actor Taiwo Hassan, popularly known as Ogogo, is battling stage 4 cancer, with his family currently seeking urgent medical direction. The family says it is not asking for money, but for medical recommendations and connections to specialists who may be able to help. Although a visa had reportedly been obtained for treatment in India, his worsening condition has made the journey difficult. Actor Femi Adebayo has also joined the call for help, urging people with connections to oncology experts to come forward and assist the family in finding possible treatment options. Away from Nollywood, another conversation is taking over the streets of Lagos, this time involving some of the city's biggest car enthusiasts. Car sporting influencer Ola of Lagos is helping fellow car sporters learn how to enjoy the hobby without causing problems on the streets. From the Ikoyi roundabout to other popular car sporting locations, enthusiasts are being encouraged to avoid blocking roads, disrupting traffic, or invading people's privacies. The move comes amid concerns over the activities of car sporters, as authorities continue to enforce rules against street activities that create public nuisance. For Ola of Lagos, it's about showing that a passion for luxury cars can still be enjoyed while respecting the city, its residents, and other road users. And that's the latest from the world of entertainment. I am Linus Quiet for S24 Television.
Thanks for staying with us. And now happening in the world of sports, Nigerian striker Akod Adams and Victor Boniface are both making headlines, but for very different reasons. Adams enjoyed the dream competitive debut at the Venezia, while Boniface is showing signs of comeback. Omotego Olawale has the reports.
Akol Adams could hardly have asked for a better introduction to life at Venezia. On Saturday night, the Nigerian striker made his competitive debut against Modena in the Coppa Italia and played a decisive role in all three of Venezia's goals. Modena took the lead in the 17th minute through Giuseppe Ambrosino, but Adams responded 9 minutes later, finding the top corner to bring Venezia level. Ambrosino restored Modena's advantage before halftime, leaving Venezia facing an early exit. Then came Adams again. With 7 minutes remaining, the Nigerian striker chased down a long ball, saw his initial effort saved, and quickly reacted to provide assist for John Yeboah's equalizer. 2 minutes later, he completed the comeback himself. Adams found the net again to make it 3-2 and send Venezia through to the next round. 2 goals, 1 assist, and a direct contribution to every goal his team scored. It was an emphatic first competitive appearance for the Nigerian, who only recently made the move to Venezia. And the result also means Adams will have another Nigerian waiting for him in the next round. Venezia's next Coppa Italia opponent is Udinese, setting up a meeting with Super Eagles goalkeeper Maduka Okoye. So while one game does not define a season, Adams has certainly made his opening statement. The next challenge is taking the momentum into Serie A. While Akol Adams is beginning a new chapter, Victor Boniface is trying to restart one. The Nigerian striker's recent years have been defined by uncomfortable combination of quality and frustration. At Bayern Leverkusen in 2023-2024 season, Boniface announced himself as one of Europe's most exciting young forwards. He scored 14 Bundesliga goals and provided 9 assists while helping Leverkusen win their first league title without losing a single match. Across all competitions, he finished that campaign with 21 goals and 10 assists, but injuries soon disrupted that momentum. A thigh problem affected the following season before a proposed loan move to AC Milan collapsed after concerns during his medical, particularly surrounding his right knee. The setback was especially significant because Boniface had already endured serious knee problems earlier in his career. He subsequently joined Werder Bremen on loan, but another knee injury eventually brought his season to a premature end and required surgery. The result was a dramatic reduction in playing time. Across his 2 Bundesliga campaigns, Boniface made only 30 league appearances. For comparison, he had played 23 Bundesliga matches in his first season at Leverkusen alone. Now, however, there are encouraging signs. After returning to Leverkusen and working his way back towards full fitness, Boniface came off the bench during Saturday's preseason meeting with Newcastle United, and in the 82nd minute at St. James Park, he produced the moment Leverkusen needed. Boniface drove forward, created space for himself, and finished to give Leverkusen a 2-1 victory. It was only preseason, but the goal was another reminder of the qualities that made Leverkusen invest in him in the first place. And that is what makes the 2026-2027 season so important. Boniface does not need to prove that he can score goals. He has already done that. The bigger question is whether he can stay fit long enough to build rhythm, confidence, and consistency. Because after 2 seasons in which injuries reportedly interrupted his progress, the biggest battle for Victor Boniface may be simply getting enough football under his belt to rediscover the player we saw in his breakthrough season. And if he can do that, Bayern Leverkusen may have a very useful weapon in their attack. Olawale Omotego, S24 Television.
This brings us to the end of Prime Desk on S24 television. But before we go, a quick recap of our top stories. Defense Minister warns against last-minute deployment for election security. Borno Muslim Christian leaders call for religious harmony. Philippine school shooting leaves 2 students dead. Join us tomorrow, same time, and remember to follow us on all our social media platforms at S24 Television for more updates and breaking stories. My name is Hadiza Galadima. Bye for now.